fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to episode 324 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, joined tonight, my co-host, once again, for a guest co-host appearance, we have Eric Robinson at _Eric_Robinson. We were talking before the show, just like old times. Eric, welcome back.
The good old days, Kevin.
Yeah, the good old days. You, me, and three of our closest friends on Facebook Live, so.
Oh man, good to be back, man. Thank you for having me on. It's our favorite time of the year, so we're 1 week away actually. So let's go ahead and get these draft takes off because I'm pretty sure there's plenty to unload between the two of us.
Oh yeah. No, we're gonna be delivering some bold Falcons draft predictions tonight. Some fun stuff for you guys. We're gonna get into our thoughts on this class. Sort of what we've been hearing, thinking in the first round, but also, I'm sure there's some hot button topics like Jalen Ramsey getting thrown around now. There's some, obviously the Browns signed Joe Flacco. So, what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins, the potential for a trade or not, all that stuff. So
we're jumping into that.
I mean, maybe. Okay. Well, if it involves draft picks in this draft, technically.
I have a pleasant message for the organization about the offseason. We'll get into that later.
I know you're much more last time you were on, we talked about the Kirk Cousins thing, and you were, adamantly about cutting him, and I was, of course, adamantly about they're gonna keep him, and so I think I know where that's going, but I'm interested to hear it nonetheless. So but guys, we're gonna get into all that tonight. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you for joining us here on the Falcoholic Live as always. And yeah, let's dive into some stuff here. If you guys got questions, throw those in the chat as well. We'll try to get to as many as we can. And of course, remember that once again, in case we haven't made it very clear to you guys, we will be live during all 3 nights of the NFL draft, probably starting around 7:30 on Thursday, probably around 7 on Friday, and then bright and early at noon, I think it is, on Saturday. Geez. So we'll be here. We'll be hanging out. We'll be doing all that good stuff during the draft. And next Wednesday, we're going to have the official Falcoholic Live mock draft for everyone to enjoy. So definitely come around for that as well. Trying to grab Thor Nystrom and Trevor Sikkema before the draft as well. Going for some big fish.
Bringing in the heavy hitters.
Yeah. So we'll see. I got to flex my my muscles here to try to get. No, but yeah, I know those guys want to come on. We'll see if we can get it done before the draft. Otherwise, we'll have them on to talk about the draft afterwards. But as it is right here, Eric, do you wanna discuss some of those other things before we dive into the draft itself? Like I know the Ramsey thing is sort of the topic du jour at the moment.
It's funny because this team, the way it's currently structured, obviously the way the offseason has gone, it's obvious that they've been trying to get as young as possible without really damaging the team structurally. They moved on from Grady. They let the whole Kirk thing, whatever. We'll
get to that. Yeah.
We'll get to that. It's interesting because Jalen Ramsey, last couple of years, Jalen Ramsey he's battled some injuries for the Dolphins. He's been solid, but I don't think he's come close to what the Dolphins thought they were getting when they made the blockbuster trade a couple of years ago. And his cap figure right now, his numbers, it's not backbreaking, but given what they've done to the roster already this offseason and how they've stressed as far as trying to stretch the dollar as much as they can, financially, it doesn't make a ton of sense to bring Jalen Ramsey in.
Yeah. I mean, it's cheaper for the team acquiring him, obviously. But again, it's like, well, the Dolphins are probably going to be expecting compensation, like, at that point. Right. And it's so.
Right. Now, in terms of just team dynamic, player to coach relationship, it fits. The Falcons should be at the top of the list, or one of the teams at the top of the list, given the fact that Jalen has he's played under Raheem Morris before. He's been very vocal about how good of a coach Raheem Morris is, how much he loved to play for him, how much Raheem Morris has changed him as a person and as a player. If you're going off that, then yes, the Falcons' name should be in the conversation. They should have a seat at the table. Financially, it really doesn't make a ton of sense when you're already paying a guy like AJ Terrell that type of money anyway, and you already gave a 3-year extension to Mike Hughes, who is, pretty solid as well on his own as a number 2 corner. Now, if you wanted to, and also, well, okay, I'll ask you this: Does it change if they didn't go the route of getting Jordan Fuller? Because I feel if they were to bring in a guy like Jalen Ramsey, I feel he does need to switch to safety. Does the outlook of it change if they didn't go that route? Because I think bringing in a guy like Jordan Fuller, I think he's your starter week 1 at strong safety. But if he wasn't in an equation, I think we would kind of sort of entertain this a little bit more, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think about like my main take on Ramsey in the situation, and I do think what's been floated by some, like the thought that he might transition to safety or something, is like, it's intriguing. Like if he was available as like a free agent, then absolutely. I mean, I think the deal would be done if he was a free agent. It's just like I can't get behind. Like we already don't have picks. Like so we could ship out a 4th for him, but it's like we need that pick. Like we already don't have any picks. Now, maybe like it's a draft sort of day thing where the Falcons end up trading back, getting a bunch of extra picks, and then maybe you feel like you can send a 4th rounder for Ramsey if you pick up an extra 4th rounder in a second or something, and then you're like, okay, well, we could trade one of the 4th rounders there. But it's like you're tight on the money. Again, it doesn't seem to jive with the team's overall desire to get younger and cheaper. And maybe it's just sort of a thing like they did towards the beginning of last season, right? Which is we're going to bring in Judon and Simmons, presumably in part because Trice was injured, but also because it's like, okay, we haven't seen the development we feel like we need from these young guys to feel confident going into the season without adding guys like this. So, maybe this is something that does happen like way later in the process if the Falcons like don't get a safety in the draft, or, maybe Helms isn't able to come back, fully from his injury and is still not, at the level that we're looking for. Whatever the reason is, like I wouldn't necessarily rule out this trade, if they don't get it done like by the draft. Obviously the Dolphins would want to get a pick this year if possible, but I think what you brought up, like he's expensive. I think the team trading for him is only on the hook for like, I don't know, 7.
20.
I thought the team 20. I'll have to look it up. I might be getting
the Dolphins have already given him a $4 million roster bonus, so I think the team that trades for him is on the hook for 21 this year.
Yeah, it could be the case.
I think his cap hit entirely was 25-ish. So, like I said, whoever brings him in, they're still going to have to pay that up. So, like I said, financially, it doesn't make a ton of sense.
So, let me. Okay, so I'm pulling it up just so because I wasn't aware of exactly what his contract looked like either. So, most of his money this year is like option bonus.
Yep.
So the Dolphins owe that. They owe the signing bonus and the option bonus. But like that's why a trade doesn't really make sense, because I'm pretty sure they would have to pay out all the remaining option bonus proration if they trade him, which is like $20-something million. He's only making 1.2 in base salary this year.
Right.
So a team trading for him actually only picks up, you have to pay the base salary and the roster bonus, like you said, which I think is like almost $5 million when combined, because there's like a regular one and a per game bonus. Right. So the team actually trading for him doesn't have to pay much, but like, I don't know why the Dolphins. Yeah, that's for this year. Now the future years you still have to pay. He's a $10 million base salary in 2026, $10 million in 2027, but I don't believe those are guaranteed at all. So,
I don't think
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
But
So, I mean, like,
here's the thing. Here's a caveat to that. To make a trade like this, you're thinking long term, right?
mhm.
Like you're thinking like this is not you're not trading for him for a 1 year rental. Get especially given the fact that you just did that with Judon and it didn't work out. You traded for Judon, right? And Judon's contract situation was still kind of sort of up in the air for the season. But we all collectively felt like, hey, how your play this year is going to determine whether the team is going to make you a priority in the offseason. Well, we saw it. He's still sitting and waiting at this point. So I think they're looking at that particular aspect and say, man, like we made that trade for a guy that we were kind of sort of just hoping that he has a certain type of year and then we will entertain a contract next offseason. It didn't work out. So they're looking at it and saying, well, we want to do that again? We want to trade a fourth for Jalen and say, hey,
Right.
don't worry about the money this year. We'll handle it next year. And then if it doesn't work out, then it's like, wow, you've forked over 2 picks
Yeah.
for two 1 year rentals.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. I think they'd have to view him as at least like a 2 year thing
a two
where
or
they're
3 year thing.
hoping that he can give them something there. But yeah, I mean, the money isn't, but like, I don't know why I guess the Dolphins can't really move him pre June 1st. Like, see, this is what I always like. People like float these trades. They don't even look at the damn contract. Like,
The contracts, right?
like he's not movable. He would cost them $8.5 million to trade before June 1st. So
Mm-hmm.
like, why would they trade him at that point? I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
and now if they do it post June 1st, they can save like almost $10 million. But you know, they're eating a lot of dead cap still, but they would at least save some money this year.
How much in dead
Um,
cap are there
let's see. Just
if
so
they for post June 1st?
it would be just 6.7 this year, but I believe
Mm-hmm.
it would be a lot next year. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that would shake out, but yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like I don't even think it's a possibility during this draft for
Well,
them to trade him.
if that's the case, then that's fine. I mean, you never honestly with these things, and I'm not
Yeah,
speaking for the Falcons from the Falcons' point of view. This may be something that you're probably entertaining and saying, hey, can we, in terms of compensation, we have to look at 2026 draft picks to see what we want to do. So it may be a waiting game when it comes to that. But I mean, knowing how the NFL is, I'm not going to close the door on a
yeah,
draft night trade
yeah,
by any means. Something that is set in stone, but designated for post June 1st, and some picks are moved. I just don't see the Falcons already have 5 picks. They only have
yeah.
5 picks in this year's draft. I can't see them moving anything in this year's draft
No, no.
for a guy that they may not commit long term to. I don't know that. So if
Yeah,
this is a situation where they had 9 or 10 picks, we
yeah. Let's go. Yeah, sure.
maybe,
Why not? Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, I can't see him pulling the trigger on this, given how they did something similar to this with Judon, and it's one of those situations where it's like they're going to have to bite the bullet for that. They're already biting the bullet enough for Kirk. They're still kind of sort of doing it again with Judon. To be honest with you, their big moves that they made last offseason, all 3 guys are probably not going to see the field for the Falcons in 2025. And I think the front office is, they're a little taken back by that.
yeah,
You know, from Judon to Kirk and Justin Simmons. Like it's just those 3 moves they were relied on heavily to elevate the roster, and they didn't even make a playoff appearance. Like I said, those guys could very well not even see the field by any means in 2025 for the Falcons. So I think whatever trade that they entertain at this point, man, they're going to approach it with caution for sure.
yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, and it's just like it's not something that I don't think it's going to be a priority for them. I think that, given what we've seen from him and his injuries and all that, it's like, I think it's something they would be happy to speculate on, but it's not, they're not going to send a premium pick, which is what they'd have to do to get him before, but
No,
yeah.
no.
It,
If the Dolphins are willing to take 2026 draft pick, Let's just say it's a day 3 pick. Let's say we send a 4th or 5th. If they were willing to take that, and Jalen says, I'm willing to take a pay cut for Ra, okay.
Yeah.
Conversation changes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But until then, I think I'm hands off on this.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty fair, and yeah, I'm not really expecting it at this point. I think the most likely scenario is that it's just maybe it happens, like if maybe they decide to cut him or something. But given the contract and all that, I just can't really. Like, I mean, a post June 1st cut still costs them a ton of money. Like, they've pushed all of his money into future years. Like, they only owe him $5.6 million in cash this year. So, like, all of the money's in the future.
They can't even really cut him. They have to trade him.
Yes. So that could make his deal cheap after June 1st. And in that case, like, sure. Like if it's like, oh, well, we'll take a future 5th or a future 6th to move him. Yeah. Because we just need the money. It's like, okay. Yeah. I'll have that conversation, but that's going to be after the draft. So, I'm not too concerned about it. I don't think it's like super realistic at this point.
I don't think it is either. No,
but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But long way, a lot of stuff going on draft night potentially, which is what we're going to get into now.
Right.
The boldest of draft takes, but there's obviously a ton of stuff floating around. And there's going to be even more rumors circling. I think the latest sort of buzz, and it's been going on for the past couple of weeks about the Falcons and offensive tackles in particular. And I'm wondering, what do you think? What's your bold take on the whole offensive tackle thing? Do you think that's legit? What's sort of your read on that?
It's fun because every team does this every draft cycle, and I don't know. It's hard to really buy into it, especially. But then again, it was
this exact same thing happened with Penix, right?
Right. I was going to say it was hard for a lot of people to buy into the team giving Michael Penix a private workout. So it was like that happened. You got the reports. Now, you and I, of course, read that and said, "Oh, that's something there," because I'm pretty sure you've mentioned it plenty of times. I know I've mentioned it plenty of times here on the show that in order for you to get as close to an idea as far as what a team draft board looks like, pay attention to top 30 visits and private workouts. Those things would tell you that would tell you who they really have interest in. And then, of course, last year, Penix has a private workout. He didn't have a top 30 visit, but he had a private workout where the GM and the head coach flew cross country to see him.
Yeah, so probably should have taken that a little more seriously in hindsight.
Yeah, like that doesn't always happen. Like that's and then it's on the owner's jet. So it's like, God, this is real. Like let's just put that in our back pocket for now. So with the Kelvin Banks thing, it's interesting because a guy like Caleb McGarry is he's played solidly. Some may not necessarily still be a fan of him as a right tackle, especially now that the responsibility has changed, that he's covering, the blind side now of a quarterback. But I don't know how much to put into that. I really don't know how much stock to put into it because they're not going to do that at 15, right?
Well, that's what I said about Penix. That, like, what I said was, I think the interest is legit. I just think it's not at like 8. I think they really like Penix and they're sniffing around in case he lingers into the first round or second to maybe for a trade up. And they did end up trading up in the second round. It wasn't for Penix, but
I didn't buy into Penix at 8, but I did buy in they're very interested in him.
Yeah. And like Brandon Bress in the chat brings up, like, if Armand Mambu is there, what do you think? Like, yes, like I think Armand Mambu is like arguably the best tackle prospect in the class. So like I get it. Like, it's not like it again, it's sort of like I feel like McGarry is okay enough that you're fine with it. But look, if the best right tackle in the class falls in your lap at 15, He's not going to. He's going to go top 10. But like I totally get it, you know, and I'm honestly in support of it to some extent. But it also like there's more to it than that. But like yes, like yeah, you're not.
Don't get it. I
Yeah,
don't get
you're
it.
not into you're not into Membu or just any tackle.
I just feel like these tackles are good, but I just feel there are going to be a number of defensive guys that are still available at 15 that can truly help their team year one. Like this, like these, you know, for bringing in a guy like Mimbu or even Banks, like you know, you're looking at 2026 and beyond.
Yeah.
I just feel like your number one or number two edge may not be there at 15, but Malachi Starks might be there.
Yeah.
Jahad Campbell might be there. Walter Nolan might still be there. Jalen Walker possibly could still be there. Mykel Williams could still be. I can't see taking a tackle over any of these guys. What message are you sending at that point?
Yeah, well, we do know that never underestimate this regime's ability to not draft defense in the first round. They've never done it. Okay, so 4 years in, we've never seen a defensive player taken. So that's part of my calculus. But, you know, like legitimately, like I think I'm going to probably have Membu as like my number 8 prospect, 9 maybe. I guess I haven't fully sorted it yet. So like
just Falcons,
just in general, big board.
okay.
Yeah, like and like the fact that he's a like right tackle actually, you know, is a big boost because like I think there's a lot of like reasons why it makes sense in a vacuum, right? It's like you could save a lot of money on Caleb McGarry. You could probably trade him for something. You know, it's the last year of his deal, so you're not getting premium pick, but maybe like a 4th rounder or something. So you could save the money, you could trade. And I'm not saying that I would necessarily do it because look, like offensive line depth is nice to have. Like the Falcons have been quite fortunate. Even in last year, like you saw how important the depth was. McGarry missed games. We had to have Storm Norton come in and he was fine. And then, you know, Drew Dalman missed like more than half the season. We had, you know, Ryan Newsel come in and he was mostly fine as well. So it's like, but I agree with you that it's not as big of a need. Like there's no doubt in my mind that it's just not as big of a need as if Mike Green's there at 15 and they're comfortable with the off-field, which, again, I can't weigh in on the off-field. I don't know enough about it. I just don't know. It's up to the Falcons to make that determination for good or ill. And so on the field, I don't have any concerns about Mike Green. So
you know what was also good to have, Kevin? A edge rusher that can flip a game. You know, like, I don't know, the season finale against your division foe where you need to win to get in and no one on defense can make a play in the second half or overtime. I don't know, maybe a guy that can, you know, change the field or make a play in overtime against the Commanders where you can get the ball back to your offense and possibly steal a game on the road. That's also nice.
That would be nice. That would be nice. Yeah. I mean, this staff, yeah. I mean, no, you're not wrong. Like, the defense, I don't think anyone's arguing that right tackle is in the top 3 needs at this point, but because Caleb McGarry's on the roster. And, like, Caleb McGarry gets too much hate. He's not a great pass-protecting right tackle. He's fine. I think against Caleb McGarry against non-elite edge rushers is fine. Okay. Against elite edge rushers, he's going to get his ass kicked, and the Falcons should know that and give him a tight end to chip. They haven't been doing that. That's not McGarry's fault. Like, very few right tackles. We're talking about, like, top 8, top 6, you know, type right tackles can go one-on-one with elite edge rushers and like, not give up sacks. Like, anyone beyond that. So we're talking about, like, above average and better tackles at that point, or less than that. They need chip help against elite edge rushers. Everybody does. Jake needs chip help on the left, you know, sometimes against elite rushers.
Sure does.
You know, but it just happens, you know, and like I think there's a long-term argument to be made for right tackle for like financial reasons, right? And that's part of the reason they let Dahlman walk is like they had so much money tied up on the offensive line. If they paid Dahlman, they'd be paying 4 of their 5 offensive linemen at that point. It's just that's not sustainable. Like you could do that for a year, maybe 2. But with Kirk Cousins' dead weight contract, it just wasn't reasonable to do that. So, you know, Membu like kind of gives you a cheap, ideally elite right tackle, and maybe lets you spend on a different. So you sort of like get rid of 2 expensive positions. Maybe you could draft, Membu and Jared Wilson, and now you've got, 3 out of your 5 offensive linemen are cheap all of a sudden. And that's going to end with Bergeron here in a year or two as well. But it's just like, I could see like sort of the GM, roster management stuff factoring in, but we're kind of burying the lead of like, this is the worst pass rush in the NFL. Like, for God's sake, can we get a first-round edge rusher at some point?
The elephant in the room. Yeah. The elephant in the room is still there. We can address right tackle all we want, but it's not going to change the fact that you still cannot consistently get after the quarterback. And I'm fearful of the possibility of this team approaching 2025 saying we need to score 30 a game. That scares
That's
me.
where we are. Yeah, that's where we are right now. Yeah,
we're going down that road, Kevin.
It could change. It could change
down that path right now. It's
this
starting
moment,
to look that way.
Yeah,
and you and I know plenty about it because we've seen it in plenty of time through the Matt Ryan era where this team is obviously trying to say everything's right on the offense. We just can't upgrade on defense. We can't find the upgrades on defense. It's going to be on Matt Ryan and Julio in the offense to lead us to the promised land. And I feel like we're slowly heading in that direction. Now, they can change everybody's mindset by simply just drafting a guy. Because if there's ever a draft for you to say, we need a defensive difference maker, man. Oh, this is a draft here.
There's going to be a lot of them. And like, again, even after a trade down, which I'm sure we'll talk about, like, there's going to be good players available. It's just that's the strength of this draft right now. It's just there's that depth.
Is there Jedi Barron, like these guys, Donovan Ezeraku, like they're going to have even as much flack as he gets. James Pierce is not. He's an intriguing prospect that you can kind of build with.
Yeah, I like James Pierce. I'm in. Like he scares me. Yeah, but I'm in. Yeah.
No, I get it. He and Shamar Stewart are your classic boom or bust prospects. But I'll be honest, I'd rather roll with those guys. I'd rather take a swing at those guys than to sit here and just neglect it altogether and say, hey, let's take an offensive tackle that's might not even play for us for a year.
Right. And it's like, again, like, if Membu's there and they go that route, like, we're going to argue it and, like, I'll be okay with it. But I don't think any of the other ones are worth it. Like, and it's very, very unlikely that Membu's making it out of the top 10 even. So
are we really okay? Are we going to look back and let's just hypothetically say they take Shamar, right? Mm-hmm. Let's just say Shamar's average. Are we really going to look back and say, man, the fact that they missed on Kelvin Banks, how could they do that?
There's always there's going to be somebody that's great that they pass on that we're going to do that no matter what.
No one's going to point that out. No one's going to say they whiffed on right tackle in that draft, and that's why they can't win games. No, we're not going to. Now, if we bypass these guys and Shamar Stewart is a fringe All-Pro and James Pierce is a Pro Bowler, we're going to be looking at this and saying, well, damn, wait,
yeah. At a certain point, like, and again, like, you're like, at a certain point, like, every year we're like, oh, well, the defense is just going to have to make do. Like, the defense is just going to have to be good enough and get by with scraps. And then, like, eventually we're going to have to be like, okay, the offense has had we've just invested 4 first-round picks to the offense. They're going to have to figure it out. Like, they're going to have to get by. And now we need to help out the defense. Like, they're drowning, Like, it's like, the kid in the pool that's over there drowning, and everybody else is like happy. The offense is over here all happy, and the defense is drowning.
We're looking at Penix in year 2 and saying, hey, kid, we know you got 3 games under your belt, but our season is on your shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Crazy. But so they definitely and I think this will be a very defense-heavy draft still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you have any bold takes about the first round at this point? I think we've kind of set the stage here with this early discussion, but
the closer we get to the draft, the more and more intrigued I am of taking a guy like Malachi Starks.
Be careful, you're stealing draft takes if you like Malachi Starks.
Look, this team right now they have no ability to just thumb their nose at anyone, at any good defender right now. And for them to just hone in on just defensive linemen and say that's the only way we can improve, like they have no room for that. I think this team can benefit from just taking anybody defensively as long as they are able to be a difference maker on the field. For a guy like Malachi Starks, man, you have a guy that instinctually he can match Jesse
Yeah.
Bates in terms of just pure instincts and ability to make timely plays. He's right there. Now there's a few things that you have to figure out with him because you may be able to get away with him playing the slot a certain amount of times during the game. You may be able to get away with having him, rotate at the safety spot. But given the fact that Raheem Morris had already saw this with the Rams when you had Taylor Rapp, you had Jordan Fuller, you had Weddle, like he was able to still have those guys on the field and still able to be a difference in their play defensively. I just feel a guy like Malachi Starks, I think he can bring just another playmaker on this team. The one thing that we drastically needed, and we said numerous times last year, we wanted to see players not named Jesse Bates make plays. And it got to a point where it was like, man, Jesse, bail us out or we have nothing. And you need something, especially late in the season when it comes to winning games late and getting in the postseason, or even just getting in the postseason. You need guys that are able to make plays defensively. You just saw that with the Eagles. It wasn't all just Jalen Carter. One game it was Jalen Carter. Another game it was Cooper DeJean. Another game it was Quinyon Mitchell. Like they got guys that are able to say, hey, we need to make a play. I'm going to make Zach Bond. Look how clutch Zach Bond was for them last year. That's what separated the Eagles defense amongst others. They have a number of guys that can, when the lights are on and it's time to make a play, they can make a play. And I think adding a guy like Malachi Starks would do that to this defense.
Yeah, and like a lot of people are like, oh, why didn't the Falcons go get Azeez Ojulari for peanuts, or why didn't they get Zach? The reason is because the Eagles can get these guys at those prices because people want to. The Eagles are a championship football team. They have been for years now. People want to go there, raise their stock, and get a huge payday. Sometimes it's with the Eagles, sometimes it's with other teams. I mean, Milt Williams, Zach Bond. I mean, like the Azeez Ojulari wasn't coming to the Falcons for no. $4 million or whatever the hell he took. That's nothing. That's way lower than I'm sure he was even. I mean, he was probably offered more by the Giants. Like
the medicals played a part there too.
It did. It may be. I mean, I don't have any intel on that, but it's very possible. But it's just like I think he could have easily got 8. Going anywhere else. Maybe 10 even. I mean, I mean Leonard Floyd got 10. Like, and no offense to Leonard Floyd. Like, Leonard Floyd's a respectable third edge, in my opinion. Like, I think he's fine. But it's like, he's 34 years old, or 33 years old, or whatever.
He's at that twilight age.
So, like, I'd much rather have Azeez, for 10, who's maybe going to stick around. This Leonard Floyd's a one-year mercenary. And, like, I'm really, like, the story's great. He wanted to come home to Atlanta. That's all awesome. But it's just like, the price was not like the Falcons aren't getting Azeez for that price. No one else is probably. And so until the Falcons become that type of team, you're not getting these cheap 1-year deals. Like that's just not going to happen for you. But like you said with Starks, like, I think they've been in on Starks for a really long time. Yeah. I know we had like the buzz from, his pro day where I think like, I can't remember if it was Jerry Gray or somebody was just like out there just like exclaiming every time he like caught
it was over.
Like just yeah. It
was over. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
He was just like ruling every time he went in.
So it's like that matters. Like and the fact that he agreed to come to Atlanta's local pro day. Like most of these guys that are these like first round guys, they wouldn't bother coming to a local pro day. They don't do that. They don't need to. Yeah. But he came to Atlanta's local pro day, which is I mean, that's nice. That's really
Yeah,
nice of him to do that. Like, I don't know if he worked out or what. I mean, they didn't say he didn't participate or anything. So, but like, they
I think he
clearly
did.
like him.
I think he
Yeah, as
did.
far as I know, he did everything. So
I don't think he was a top 30, right? He was a top 30.
it
And
was,
of course
yeah,
they went to Georgia's pro day to see him. I
yes,
believe he was a top 30. Now, if that's the case, that's 3 boxes that are checked. They went to his pro day. He was a top 30 visit along with your local pro day. So they've had that tells you right there. This staff has had eyes on this kid the entire draft cycle. So
yeah. No, it was a combine formal, not a top. I was looking it up right now. It was a
it was a
combine formal, pro day, and
combine.
then local pro day. So either way, three. Yeah, either way, three things.
They
Yeah.
met with him on 3 different occasions. They either met with him or worked him out on 3 or saw him work out
Yeah.
on 3 different occasions.
That's a lot. Yeah.
That's yes, that is significant, especially at a position that's not a need for this team. I think it just shows that they value at this point. They're just looking at it and saying, "Hey, we need playmakers defensively," and Malachi Starks can do that. And having him on the field, now, like I said, it would be interesting because I think, given how the way the roster is shaped, you might see him play some slot duty,
Yeah, this year.
but
Yeah.
it won't be anything. It won't be new to him. He did
No.
that at Georgia.
He had to do that a
Um,
lot this year.
yeah, he did. He had to do it, and he's fine with that.
Yeah. I think he's better at safety, but like he's fine as a slot. Like he's
he,
definitely an improvement over last year.
he's probably a fringe Pro Bowler at slot, but at safety, he's a future All Pro. Like
Right. Sure.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, the closer we get to the draft, the more I'm looking at Malachi Starks and saying, man, if he's still available when they pick, like they might actually consider him over some edge rushers that may be available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they will consider him over Pierce. I think they may consider him over Stewart. I think
Yeah.
they may consider him over Nolan. Right
Yeah.
now, if I had to throw darts at something, I would say right now Mike Green is probably their number one. Is the one that they have their eyes on. Jalen Walker may be 2. I think Nolan fits in at 3, and after that, it might actually be Malachi right there. And you can make a case for Malachi being number 3 on their board, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right now, I just don't think they're looking at position and saying, yeah, we're fine there. I think they just don't mind grabbing anybody. It doesn't matter. Even
Yeah.
Will Johnson as well. Will Johnson.
Yeah. No, we could talk about Will Johnson too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm lower on him in some ways, but like, and Barron we should talk about, but like,
Yeah.
And I think the overall prediction here is like the Falcons, Starks in particular, he's probably the number one, but like in terms of what I'm thinking the Falcons are in on, but I think secondary at 15 is a much bigger possibility than I think some fans think. Like I think a lot of people think it's got to be D line, and I don't think the team's operating like that at all.
Yeah.
Even though I think like personally, Mike Green probably is like the best like value / need fit. I don't think he's gonna be number 1 on their board. So we'll see. But I do like Malachi Starks. I think he's like number 3 on my target list. But number 1 for me is Barron. Because I the guys that I have as like blue chippers or close to it in terms of grading that I think will be there would be like Barron, number 1 for me, Green 2, and Starks 3. I think those guys are all either Barron's a like full blue chip grade for me, and I think the other 2 are like kind of 1.5s. So but to me, those are all high end guys. So I'm curious what you think about Barron, given the Falcons' kind of desperate need at slot too.
Barron is a guy you throw on the Texas tape. You watch the games. Barron was a guy that was always running football, always making plays. Probably the most consistent player on their defense this past year. And there's a number of guys that are in this draft coming off that defense that I actually Alfred Collins is a guy is a nose tackle 330 plus that I would definitely consider on day 2. But Andrew Makuba, Baron Sorrell, like there's a number of Texas guys that are in this draft that are going to hear their name called, but Barron was the best of the bunch, in my opinion. Playmaker, guy that you can slot him in as the starter at slot from day 1. and I think your secondary has taken a step forward.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. I do have, and some people have the concerns about the size and the frame, which is fine, which is a given. I mean, and we would have him too, but we will also have him if we had Clark Phillips starting at slot as well. Like as much as I like Clark Phillips and his pedigree, he's 5'9". Like
Yeah. Barron's not that small.
yeah, there's only a whole there's only so much he can do. I think them moving him to the slot is probably best, in my opinion anyway. But I think Barron is a solid pick for me. Honestly, I think you get a guy out there that is football IQ, his ability it shows up on tape. You just want to see a little bit more consistency when it comes, in the tackling department. You want to see more consistency when it comes to man coverage as well. But he's going to he's going to have to go through the ringer a little bit, and that's fine. But I wouldn't mind taking a guy like Jedi Barron and having him as the starting slot corner in Atlanta.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of his game, and I think like he and Starks are they just move different. Like, I mean, Starks is kind of in his own world. Like he's not the most athletic on like the testing, but Starks is just, some guys are they're just smooth. Like they're just this smooth movers, and Starks is he's smooth, man. He's like an assassin. Like it feels like when just the way he moves is different. And to me, that's a key thing for those safeties.
And over the years that you and I have known each other and we've watched a lot of Falcons drafts, and I'm pretty sure you've heard me say a lot, man. Like I really love the aspect of versatility on the defense at all three levels. That's something that I really value. And I think a guy like Malachi Starks, it will stress that enough. Just the fact to have him and Jesse Bates on the field at the same time, not knowing exactly where they're lining up or who they're covering on a given play. Like to me, I feel like that's right up there with what the Eagles are doing with Cooper DeJean and Chauncey, when they had Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as well. Like those guys are able to play both safety spots, and it didn't matter where they lined up, they were able to still be effective enough. And I think that's what helped that defense, especially late in the year. And having Malachi Starks, I think, can help this defense as well.
Yeah. I think both those guys, and like I think like the secondary in general is much closer to being like you need an identity, and I think it's pretty clear that the Falcons want the secondary to be their identity. I don't think that's a secret. You look at where they've spent their money; it's kind of obvious. But they're like if they were to take Starks or Barron, I think at this point it's like, okay, like this is your identity now. Like you're a secondary focused team. That doesn't mean you shouldn't get the defensive line up to snuff. It's just that's just where they are right now. Like you're gonna try. And I hope that would mean they would play more man and stuff like that too, where like they're gonna flex their muscles in the secondary a bit more to help out the pass rush. That's kind of why Nielsen's pass rush was better, is because they were a lot more aggressive.
Especially when you also have arguably the best secondary coach in the league in your back pocket as well, in Jerry Gray. So having that and having the secondary be your identity, yeah, I can definitely see that for sure. And like I said, I just think having Malachi out there, it opens things up. But again, as I mentioned, Will Johnson, I've been seeing, the possibility of him being available at 15, and I'll be honest with you, man, I don't know if I would be against that. I wouldn't mind that at all. I think that it shakes things up a little bit. I think they may be looking at this as Mike Hughes being the cornerback too. However, if the situation played out where Will Johnson is available and they take Will Johnson, I don't think they have any problem whatsoever sliding Hughes to the slot and putting Will Johnson on the boundary. But what is it about Will Johnson that doesn't? Because you mentioned that he's not as high. You're not as high on him.
I don't love his man coverage, and I think the long speed is a little concerning. It's not like it's getting overblown, like the stuff about him running like a 4.6 or something. I don't think he runs a 4.6. He probably runs like a 4.55. And he's a big corner, so you could get away with that to some extent when you're big. But the thing that I didn't love, that I'm like a man coverage guy. I love man, and I love to be aggressive up front. Like I think if you draft Will Johnson, you're probably kind of pigeonholing your defense into staying zone heavy. And maybe that's just, it's not really about Will Johnson. It's about like what that pick sort of represents, which is like, we could, at this point, I think they're in a situation where they could kind of be versatile. And I think Johnson just definitely plays better in zone. Not that he couldn't improve in man or whatever. But I guess that's my hang up, is because I would rather them sort of play a little bit more versatile coverage. And, I know that Ulbrich loves quarters, so maybe we'll play a ton of that. I mean, I don't know, but
it's funny because I actually had to do a number of guys that could be picked in the first round for the Falcons. I actually had to do a number of their highlight tapes, and Will Johnson was one of them. And the one thing that I noticed about Will Johnson, man, maybe it's me, all right, but just from the frame to his running style, like I actually saw some Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, I've heard that comp. Yeah, I've heard that.
So, and the one thing about him, he was always matched up with the number one. There was a particular when he was last year when he was matched up against Marvin Harrison Jr. Made some plays, had a pick six in that game, I believe, as well. He just to me, I think he's one of the cleanest prospects in the draft. I think you got a future stud at corner in Will Johnson. I think he's a guy that's going to have some accolades to his name. I honestly, if I had to, I know everyone compared to Patrick Surtain, but honestly, I would say his ceiling is Stephon Gilmore, which is not a bad ceiling by any means. And the play style is right there as well. So I just don't know if he'll be there at 15. I don't want to bank on that because there's a couple teams hanging around. There's a team out on the West Coast that plays in the Bay that just let their number one corner leave in free agency. Yeah. And they need someone to fill that spot, and I think he will be absolutely perfect for that.
Yeah, Will Johnson definitely seems to have some really like high grades from some teams. Again, I think like teams that are going to play a lot of cover three, which like maybe the Falcons are going there. Like, Ulbrich, I mean, he was with Saleh, right? They love to play that Dan Quinn defense, right. Play a lot of cover three. And, right. So if the Falcons are going to go that route, I guess it would make sense. I guess to me, it's like, well, why the hell did we just pay Mike Hughes all this money? Which I think was actually a pretty good value contract. Like if we're going to now, Mike Hughes doesn't play the slot well, in my opinion. So it's kind of like, oh, I don't really want that.
He's serviceable. He's serviceable.
Yeah. I don't want to pay $6 million for serviceable. So but again, it's like you shouldn't be passing on like if they have like a blue chip grade on Will Johnson, they shouldn't be passing on Will Johnson for $6 million a year, to Mike Hughes. Like that shouldn't really be part of your calculus. But I'm curious to know what the Falcons think about him, because he does seem like by polarizing, I mean like some people have him as a top 5 pick, some people have him as a top 20 pick. So it's not that polarizing, but it's sort of like yeah.
Even saying he's a top 15 pick I'm like, I don't know if I see that. Mm-hmm. I really don't know if I see it. Is there anyone you want to stay away from? Is there anyone that you're like, by any means necessary, do not draft this guy?
I'm gonna make a lot of Georgia fans mad.
Oh no.
I'm out on Jalen Walker as a top 15 pick. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That wasn't the name I thought you were going to throw out.
Oh, who'd you think I was going to throw under the bus?
Mikel? I thought you were going to say.
Actually, I see, when I first watched them, I thought I was going to dislike Michael Williams, and I thought I was going to love Jalen Walker. And it actually was the opposite. I actually liked Michael Williams and didn't. And it's not. I think saying I didn't like Jalen Walker is too harsh, because that's not what it is. There's not a clean projection, and the size you're basically looking for him to be an outlier. And I don't really like doing that if I can help it.
He's Hassan Reddick.
That's the hope, except he's
exactly what Hassan Reddick,
right? Yeah.
A little smaller, but I'm talking about in terms of just projection and play style. He's exactly what Hassan Reddick was coming out of Temple, where you didn't really know where to put him. And that's what Arizona did. Arizona had him stand up as a Mike the first few years, and he looked out of place. And then that's when he got to Carolina was like, hey, you're going to rush the passer. That's when you started to see Hassan Reddick reach his true potential at that point. I think that's what Jalen Walker absolutely is. I think he's just a hybrid guy. I don't think he has a position. I don't think he necessarily needs one right now. I think if a team just puts him on the field, he's just going to find himself around the ball. He'll find his position over time. If Hassan Reddick was able to do it, I truly think Jalen Walker can do it as well.
No, I think that's kind of how I see him. And I think you're right. They're pretty much the same size. I'd have to look at the arm length because that's probably the big difference would be my guess.
Yeah.
Because the arm length is like the biggest red flag in his whole projection, which again is like, you know.
There's no watching this. There's no length. Okay. You're what Mikal gives you, like, you're not going to get that from Jalen.
It's very different. They're like polar opposite players.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Now, like,
And I don't care about Mikal's 40 time. He was hurt. I don't care.
He's hurt all year. Yeah.
He was hurt. I don't care about that. But I think Jalen can carve out a career. It's not that. Yeah. So but to ask the question for you, because there are some similarities in terms of how you would use him. At the same point, there are some similarities along the same lines as how you use Kate Ellis as well.
Yeah.
So how would that even work with Caden and Jalen on the field?
That's part of it. And it's like, and like the thing with Jalen is like, I don't want people to think that I know NFL Stock Exchange does this bit all the time. If someone says he's like a late first round pick, they're like, oh, well, he's undraftable then. No, you hate him. Like, you hate his guts. Like, no, that's not what we're doing. Like I think of him as more of like a late first type of guy because, again, of the projection like issues that I have for his size archetype. And like Hassan Reddick himself is a huge outlier. So it's sort of like, I don't like banking on outlier if I can help it. And again, so it's like, if the conversation was like, oh, well, it's Jalen Walker or like Shamar Stewart, then you're just comparing two like outliers, basically. Like Shamar Stewart's an outlier in that he's got, perfect 10 RAS, but no production. And Walker's got more of the like, where do we play this dude, whatever.
Right.
And a lot of people compare Walker to Nolan Smith and they're like, oh, well, Nolan Smith is small and he can defend the run. Nolan Smith is one of one. He's a demon against the run. No, there's no reason he should be as good against the run as he is. Nolan
was also a full-time edge.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I don't see how that compares.
Well, it's I agree. Like I think like the issue for me is like Walker's best tape is him rushing the passer.
Right.
But he's going to have to play off ball, and I don't really think he has off ball instincts at this point.
How much off ball will he have to play? That's the thing. Because we kind of sort of felt the same way about Micah, and we saw how it played out with Micah, where him playing off ball, Tom Brady picked him apart. Tom Brady was like, "Oh, you're gonna have him cover Gronk? Cool." So, and then Dallas was like, "Okay, never again. We're just gonna let you rush from wherever you want to rush." Yeah. So how much is Jalen Walker going? I guess that's dependent on whichever team takes him.
Yeah. Because I think if you're wanting him to play a lot of off ball, it's gonna take a while before you're able to do that. Like I don't, so it's like you're basically drafting a DPR at 15, and like if he hits, go ahead.
Which is why I don't love the pairing of him in Carolina.
Yeah, they seem obsessed with him though. So. Like, I mean, yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, it's just like that's why I feel like he's a late first guy as opposed to a top 15 guy, because I think he's probably a DPR for most of his rookie contract. And if he hits to the level that like Hassan Reddick eventually hits, that's great. But Hassan Reddick didn't become Hassan Reddick until after his rookie contract ended. So like that's a problem too. So it's sort of why I have him sorted more into the like late, like sort of second half of the first round. I'm a little bit nervous about you category, as opposed to like the top 15, which is like, I'm a lot less nervous about you. I have a clean projection. And it's and I know like you had, I think you had Green ahead of him or whatever. So it's like, I feel a little bit, and Green also has short arms. So it's, clearly we're not just short arm haters. Now, Jalen Walker's short arms are on like another level. They're like a full inch shorter, I think. But
So you're fine, or you're projecting that Jalen will likely start off as off ball, and depending on the situation, he may, on occasion may see some edge rushing duties, right? If that's the case, then I feel his fit will likely be better maybe in San Francisco alongside. If he's going to play off ball, you can, I mean, yeah, you can pair him with Fred Warner and then on third down, so you can tell him to go get after the quarterback with Bosa, or in Arizona where they brought in a guy like Josh Sweat, and Josh Sweat is their primary edge rusher now. So I guess you and I are looking at it and saying his best situation, he doesn't need to be the best edge rusher in the room. If that's the case, then that's a problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is he's like a better edge rusher, but he's built like an off-ball linebacker. So it's
Right.
like you want him to rush the passer, but he can't play the run as an edge rusher. Like it's just not going to work. Like not in the NFL. He was okay in college doing it, but like he's going to get mauled in the NFL doing that. Like Nolan Smith's the only guy I can think of at that size that doesn't get mauled. So that's my issue is like I think he needs to be an edge rusher because his off-ball stuff is like a couple years away, and he like can't really play. Like he's gonna have to be a designated pass rusher for probably like until he can start taking off-ball snaps. I don't know that you can play him outside of designated pass rush situations because I'm not sure he's ready to play off-ball.
So we have two different observations then. So you feel he's better as a full-time edge rusher or designated edge rusher.
Yeah, like a pass rusher. Yeah.
I feel he can get away with playing off ball. It just depends on what's around him.
Right. Like what you're asking him to do. Yeah.
Yeah. What you're at,
Yeah.
like if this, like again, if it's a situation like San Francisco, you're not asking him to do much. You're just putting him out there with Fred Warner and say, go make a play. There's not he doesn't have a ton of responsibility on this plate. And that's why I feel like a situation like that he can thrive in, where he can play a little bit of off ball, but he can also third downs, time to get after the quarterback. You can slide him down and say, hey, you and Bosa go wreak havoc. So
yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it is.
He has no one position.
Yeah, and that's just that just kind of scares me off. But I think you could also turn around and be like, well, that's why I like him, and that's totally fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely one of the more polarizing guys, I think. And like we mentioned Michael. Speaking of hot takes, like I would consider Michael a 15. I mean, I think he wouldn't be high on my list necessarily. Like there's probably like 4 or 5 guys I'll have ahead of him, but like he's in that maybe fringe top 5. I mean, I can't remember where I slotted him in, but he's like the opposite of Jalen Walker in that he has a very defined position. He's a 4-3 end.
Yes.
And he's an incredible run defender.
Yes.
Who will be able to start immediately and give you good run defense, no question. He's got all the traits. He's not the most he doesn't have long speed. He doesn't have great bend or anything, but he's explosive. And like he's basically what you want in a 4-3 edge rusher, but he just hasn't had the pass rush production. And part of that was obviously this injury that prevented. I think it was a shoulder injury, right? So like,
but then and then it was the foot later on.
Yeah. So it's like that obviously hurts your ability to rush the passer when you can't use your hands fully, and if you have a foot that hurts, I mean, you lose explosiveness, you lose hand usage ability. So, but I think you're expecting him to get healthy, and he doesn't have the projection that, like, you're basically just projecting that he needs to get better as a pass rusher. But the reason I like him better is because I can throw him on the field for hundreds of snaps as a run defender, and he's going to give you like solid pass rush. He might not be like a great pass rusher right away, but he's going to push the pocket. He's going to do stuff. Like he's probably going to be better than most of the guys the Falcons rolled out there last year outside of Ebiketie and
I was going to say he would definitely be a better edge rusher than, I mean, not edge rusher, but he would definitely defend a run better than Ebiketie.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. So that's the thing. Like they kind of need that. Like they got a guy in Floyd and they got a guy in Ebiketie who I think are both like perfectly good like pass rushers, but both of those guys are not. They're weak side edge rushers, right? Like you don't want them head up against an OT trying to set the edge. Like that's just not going to work. That's not going to go well for them. If they have to run and chase from the backside, it's fine. It's actually Ebiketie is pretty good at that, but it's just like so they don't really like. They need to move Zach Harrison back to edge. Also, that's a separate conversation. But
well, I think that he does. Mikel has that raw potential that I think you and we definitely would be more willing to bank on, given what we saw during his time at Georgia. When it comes to a guy like Shamar Stewart, Um, I can see why someone could look at him and say, "Ooh, that's a nice, flashy toy." What scares me about him is the fact that um, he cut weight prior to the Senior Bowl, and that was really his first time playing at that weight. And it was he basically played at that weight in a modified practice. So I don't know what 260-pound Shamar Stewart edge rusher looks like.
Yeah, I feel like he should stay at like 270 and play it that way.
Maybe he should. Maybe I don't know. Like, and I'm not going to go off what I saw at the Senior Bowl and say, yeah, he can do it. He can make the transition. Right. I don't know of that because he got the A&M. Before he even got the A&M, he was like 280. He got the A&M. He added on close to 20 pounds. They pretty much essentially had him as a five-tech DN, as a Sam DN. He played out of place his entire time. And then ironically, when he declares for the draft and leaves A&M, he sheds weight, gets to the Senior Bowl. He's 260. Now he looks athletic and fast, but at the same time, it's like he's doing one-on-ones. Like, I'm not really, I'm not seeing this in a game. I don't know what that guy is going to look like.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly. And like he and Nick Scorton, I like Nick Scorton a lot too. And I think A&M misused both of them. That's just kind of like A&M's thing. They just they make all their edge rushers play 4-eye. You know, I don't really get it, but
and they made Nolan play nose.
Yeah. So so it's frustrating, but I think both those, like, to me, like, Stewart is just a huge dice roll, and because he just doesn't finish. Like he is a very frustrating watch as a run defender because he will destroy a tackle. He will push his way into the backfield. He will crush the edge and just not make a play. And just not make a play, ever. I mean, it's like it's just
there were, because I had to do his tape too. There were a couple times where he made the correct read. He blew up a run, but there was also some times where, as you stated, he puts that head down, he drives into a tackle, and he looks up, and the ball is gone. He loses the ball in that situation, and that just he hasn't had enough reps. As a pure edge.
Yeah. And I think at that weight, the change of direction was hard for him. Like, you could see it. And I think if he plays at 260 to 270, you lose that 30 pounds. That makes so much of a difference for an edge rusher. Like, he might be able to bend, and we never saw it on tape because he was carrying 300 pounds.
I don't know what that bend looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. So he's fascinating. I mean, I would have, I think I had him in my top 10 as an honorable mention, just because it's look, if the top guys are gone and it's a nightmare situation, you could do worse than just throwing a dart, at Shamar Stewart. It's not ideal, but they seem to really trust their coaching. And at least they have a coach in Nate Ali who I actually believe in now.
Right. I would like a guy like Enzaraku over him.
Yeah. I guess I'm lower on him too. When people were talking about him as a early second, I was like, oh yeah, love it. Now he's being talked about as a top 20 guy. And I'm like, oh, okay.
No, he's right where he belongs. He's right where he belongs. He's a guy, the production is there. Led the ACC in sacks, led the nation in sacks last year, quietly with 17. So you have that. He has that over Shamar. Shamar only has 4 career sacks. It's wild. But he doesn't give you the necessary size that you would prefer at edge. But man, he plays way more physical than you would think his frame would dictate. His frame would tell you that he may struggle against certain offensive tackles. But you put on the tape, and this guy is getting into the chest of tackles, and he's maneuvering them. He's placing them wherever he wants to place them. And he's getting after the quarter. I like him a lot, man. I just don't think a lot of people had the eyes on him because he played at Boston College. He wasn't playing in the SEC every week. So
yeah, I think he's a good prospect. I don't know if he's top 15 worthy to me, just because I think the size limits his ceiling a bit, but I think he's a good prospect. I think he's absolutely in consideration.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have an issue with that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we've covered most of these first round guys. I think you said your bold prediction was Malachi Starks. That is that who you're going with?
Yeah, I think that's my bold prediction. I think Malachi is higher than people want to believe, and I think if he's on the board and they're drafting, I think he's in serious consideration. Also, to add on that, hypothetically, if they were to take Mike Green at 15, I would be ecstatic. But honestly, I don't want them picking at 15 at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as long as
Yeah.
if they can trade down and just stay anywhere between 15 and 22, 23, I'll be good with that.
Yeah. I that's my bold prediction is they pull it off finally. Get a
Finally,
trade down. I know I've been saying this for the last 4 years, but this time, Eric,
we've
this
been saying it
time,
for how long, Kevin? Like,
this time, look, fool me once, okay, shame on you. Fool me 4 more times, shame on me. But
we've
like
we've definitely accomplished trading up. We've done that. We were close to doing that last year, but trading down for some reason this team was allergic to. I don't know why.
Like they've made it clear that they want to trade down. Apparently, like every team wants to trade down, so that could complicate this. But the reason I think Atlanta has a great chance to do it is because my guess is they're willing to take less than market value to do it, assuming it's like decent value. Like I don't think they're going to be like, you got to give us like crazy value for this or we're not going to do it. I think they know that like this is not a draft where you're going to get premium value on it, unless it's for Shadur. But we'll see. At this point, I think there's no chance he's making it to 15. So,
oh really?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean the Saints have to take a quarterback now. Apparently, Derek Carr's arm fell off during the offseason.
What the hell? Who knows what the hell the Saints?
They're gonna take Shamar Stewart. I'm sticking to that. That was my prediction months ago. Yeah, he just screams Saints. He just screams Saints like pick. Like
they just might.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. Cam Jordan's getting up there. He's long in the tooth.
They're just like, yeah, we need all these things, but what we could really use is another project edge rusher.
Right.
Looking at you, Peyton Turner. I'm looking at you. We could trade up for Lamar Jackson, but actually what we need is another project edge rusher.
another edge rusher that's not ready to go. We just
Yep. God, what if they do that again? Like they like have the option to take Shadur. Now, I'm not comparing Shadur and Lamar Jackson. Let's get that clear. But like they have the option to take a quarterback. I'm not. Yeah. They have an option to take a quarterback and they take another project edge rusher instead. That would be perfect.
They may take like Scorton at
Oh God, I could see that too. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, that'd be nuts. But yeah, I think the Falcons pull it off. I think that I think it's gonna be like, I could see Steelers, I could see Chargers, I could see who was 23 that we traded with? The Packers, I could see the Texans coming up for a tackle that's still there. I think that's part of what I'm thinking. Like maybe they're putting out all this tackle smoke because they want someone to think they're really in on a tackle, and they need to like convince them not to take this tackle because that's who they want.
Okay. Let's see where you're going with that.
So it's this is like 4D chess levels of projection at this point, but everybody knows the Falcons want to trade down. I think in years past they've been more tight-lipped about it, so I think that suggests that they actually are serious about it. I think they are willing to take, a little bit less than market value to get it done. And I think, you go down to 25, for example, pick up a second and a fourth or something like that. Maybe a second, a fourth, and a sixth, and send a seventh back, And, you fill out your class in a way that you desperately need, and you're probably still going to get like an Ezeraku or, maybe Starks falls, maybe. Safeties always fall. They just always do.
Now we're talking 25. I would be. You might convince me to take a swing at Shamar if he's still there.
Yeah.
At 25, I just the value is a little bit better there for me. At 15, it's like I'm not on board with that. But at 25, you might be able to convince me. But they would still, regardless. And you and I are in agreement with this. A trade down for them, they'll still have a number of defensive guys to choose from. Like the cupboard is not going to be bare if they were to trade down with, in the early 20s.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could see that. Yeah, do you have any day 2 takes? I think for me, like I would say right now, like if I had to put money on one player being a Falcon in the second round, it would be Jared Wilson. I think it has to be a second rounder, first of all.
Day
2
takes.
Yeah.
Day 2 takes.
Yeah.
Man, and I think a trade down would definitely drive this. don't be surprised if they really take a swing at a guy like Isaiah Bond. Like don't
They tried to meet with them. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen now, for the record. I think it
it,
would have
it
otherwise.
may it may. I don't know if you saw the latest news, but it
Yeah,
may. His
I saw that.
lawyers,
Yeah.
recently his lawyers are going to file lawsuits now because of the fact that allegedly the allegations were false
Yep.
from the women. So the timing of this is perfect. So a week before the draft, and
Conveniently
that news
timed.
comes out, and
Yeah.
so I'm pretty sure some teams are like, "Oh, okay, all right, cool, we can breathe now." I I don't. It may not be in round two. Like I said, if a trade down happens, they were able to get an extra day two pick. I definitely think they will consider it in that aspect. But I'm buying that. I'm buying that they are intrigued about Isaiah Bond. Because if you take a look at the guys that they worked out and looked at in receiver, it's him, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
They haven't really looked at anybody else in terms of in the receiver room outside of him. So
yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not super high on Bond, but like they do need a return specialist, and I think we can't really depend on
Agnew.
Yeah, we can't really depend on Agnew staying healthy. Like, I think when he is healthy, he's still a good returner, but he doesn't really offer you anything on offense anymore, and I think the health is a serious question. But yeah, I mean, I could see them going, especially if Bond falls, too. I could see that being more interesting to them. Yeah. But yeah, I think they're very interested in Jared Wilson for obvious reasons. They need a center, and I think they would like to take Georgia players. Like, I don't think that's lip service anymore. I think they're like, okay, we like probably have to do that at some point.
I agree. If there was a year where I would feel comfortable putting money on them taking a Georgia player, it might be this year. I think
I would be shocked. Yeah,
because part of it is also because of the fact they need to fan the flames a little bit because of everything that happened with Kirk Cousins in that situation. And they're looking at it and saying, what's the best way we can kind of sort of calm down the fan base? Oh, let's take a good Georgia player. That might ease it a little bit.
Yeah. So
I think they walk away with one this year. Yes, I agree.
I could see that. Yeah, but I think those are pretty bold, and I think we covered a lot of prospects on here. So, yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat with us. Please like, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure to join us next week for live draft party through all 3 days of the draft. We'll once again be doing our NFL shop giveaways. George Costanza's hooked us up with some more NFL shop cards, so we'll be giving away one on day one on day two, and then 2 on day 3 as well for everybody. So that's going to be really exciting. This is a little, it feels like the enthusiasm for this draft is lower than it has been in years past. I get it. The Falcons don't have a lot of picks. That could change though. Like, we could know a lot by night one about how many picks this team's going to have. And I, my bold prediction suggests that, I think that they might get a few more, or some other craziness could happen. Right. I mean, who knows, but,
real quick before we sign off, I wanted to address the whole Kirk Cousins thing. And
yes, I forgot. Okay, please, yes.
real quick, I'm not going to keep it so long, but now having a guy like Michael Penix in the building definitely eases this a little bit, but they completely dropped the ball when it came to this. Not only just in terms of how much money they gave him, not even talking about the disconnect between the two in season with Kirk having an injury and the staff and the team didn't know about it, but also how they handled it in the offseason, where they obviously were trying to stand pat. They were not going to cut him. They were willing to trade, and they were talking about trades. And it just kind of sort of felt like they were dragging their feet a little bit with that. And then ultimately, it looks as if from afar, like you're stuck with them now. You can't move from them. And I know they wanted to do that to get draft compensation. I don't think they handled this well, man. I think this is Like, but at the same time, having Michael Penix eases that. Now, imagine if we were going to this draft right now with everything going on with Kirk, and we need a quarterback. Imagine
Right.
where we would be as an organization, right? Like we will feel as if like, what in the hell is this? I just, but yeah, that's it's been very disappointing how they handle that. And like I said, I think the cherry on top was Flacco signing with the Browns, re-signing with the Browns, and it just at that point it just blew up in their face, and they're like, "Well, damn." But at the same time, both sides here handled this wrong because Kirk, if you want to go somewhere, you got to lift your claws, buddy. Like you can't sit here and demand and say you want to be a starter and you want to go somewhere where you can be a starter, but you're being picky. You don't
Yeah.
have that. You don't have a whole lot of room to be picky.
Yeah. Teams aren't going to wait. Like teams aren't going to like wait to get guys at this point. Like if you wanted to have a realistic shot to be Cleveland starter, you needed to just be willing to make it work to go there before the draft.
Yes.
But instead, he was like, no, it's going to be after the draft, And obviously, because he wanted that, it changes things financially, and we'll see. Like, I still think they're going to be able to move him. I don't think they're going to be able to get much for him or anything, but it's just like, we'll have to wait and see, at this point, because now it's injury, like, that's going to have him moved, not anything else. Like, so, I mean, they're not going to trade him to the Saints, but now it's just anybody. No. Like, there's no other quarterbacks left at this point. So it's like, yeah, and unless you're, completely sold on one of these other day two potential guys.
But it was, I guess, I don't know how he was looking at everything, but given how the quarterback carousel played out this offseason, you would have thought that he's looking at everything and saying, okay, I'm running out of options here. Hell, the Giants signed 2. They got Russ and Jameis. The Jets brought in Fields. The Steelers seem to be still waiting for Aaron Rodgers. I don't know why that team put themselves through that, but you guys.
Arthur Smith never changed.
Oh my God! But it's just like if you're Kirk, you're looking at this and saying, I want to be the start. I want to be a starter. I want to go somewhere, but my options are pretty. They're getting limited right now. So let me just go ahead and lift this clause so I can get the hell up out of here. But he didn't, and here's where we are.
Yeah. So, I hope that they're able to move him at some point, and we'll just have to see how that develops. It'll probably be preseason, when someone gets hurt, because it's going to happen.
But at that point, it's probably going to be a low draft pick. It's probably going to be.
Oh yeah. I think it's more about the money for Atlanta. Like, I mean, any amount they could get off the books, I think they'd be happy to do at this point. And it's going to be like mostly future money, obviously, but I mean, that's fine. But I mean, again, it's like desperation. Like maybe if there's an injury before, the regular season, somebody comes up with a 5th instead of like a pick swap or something. And it's like a 5th, like you could flip that for a player. I mean, like, you could do a lot with that. And it's not like, obviously none of this is ideal. So, but if you can get anything for him and then save some money, then,
I'm all for
that's
it.
pretty much all we got. and I'll be glad for the saga to have ended. But, it unfortunate the way that went down. Because I think there was a way to thread the needle, but again, very difficult to do this crazy thing and have it work out to where everything works out. And while I think ultimately it's going to work out, like the whole process with Penix and Kirk, like, because if Penix becomes a franchise quarterback, you're like, okay, well, whatever. But having both of them work out was always very unlikely. I think the Falcons were like, oh, well, we could have Kirk for a couple years, and then Penix would just walk in the door. It's like, that's usually not what happens.
Honestly, I think the drafting of Penix has already been justified, in my opinion. Games in, because everyone thought he wasn't going to play, and everyone figured that this is a situation that they might not be able to truly handle. But in that aspect, I think they won that side, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
Especially if this kid comes in and takes them to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously makes that pick look way better given everything that's happened. It conversely made the Cousins signing look way worse. So it's sort of like
it did,
but let's be honest. Like, Terry Fontenot needed more draft hits than he did free agent hits. He was like, I think this is his first like big free agent miss, honestly.
Yeah.
So like. It happens. It happens to the best of them. He really needed some big draft hits to stay around, and Penix obviously, if you hit on a franchise quarterback, that'll get you pretty far. So, I think if Michael Penix turns into the franchise quarterback, we all hope that he will be, then, we'll be in a much better situation than a lot of teams, even though this year is probably not going to be great. I mean, I think it'll be about the same as last year. Hopefully they're, competing for the playoffs. But, I don't know if they'll actually make it again. Right. But, we'll see. We got a long way to go. But the draft is like the second step on that road. We got to see what they're able to do. Can they get some extra picks in here? Can they get some difference makers? That's been Terry Fontenot's. The first round hasn't been the problem. I feel pretty confident whoever we draft in the first round is going to be good. It's just like the rest of it that's been the issue. So we'll see, right? But Eric, appreciate it as always. Got a throwback show here for the people before the draft. Guys, he's at _Eric_Robinson working over at ESPN. Anything else, Eric, you want to share with the people before we sign off?
As always, man, the Falcoholic, one-stop shop, everything you need, all Falcons. I've definitely been relying on you guys a lot when it came to just being in the know as far as the top 30 list, the tracker that you guys put together when it came to that. But like I said, man, Falcoholic is where you need to be. Everything you need is right there, one click away. Have at it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, can't argue with that, right? But I have been, I did get a message through the grapevine that if you read the Falcoholic, you are a fake fan. So unfortunately, everyone here is a fake fan. So, I'm sorry to have to break this news to you guys. I know how much, I know it's probably been hard to keep this illusion up for however many years, probably 30 years for some of you, maybe less for some of the youngs in here. But I guess we've been found out. We've been exposed. So no, we love you guys.
It's funny how spot on the Falcoholic has been on a number of Falcons related topics. But hey, it is what it is. I guess
it is what it is. Yep. Can't please them all. But no, we do appreciate you guys and everybody hanging out, everybody enjoying and having some respectful discourse sometimes. It's not always respectful. That's too much to ask. But no, we love you guys. Thanks for joining us. Great to have you guys here. We look forward to hanging out with you guys more next weekend. We'll have a show for you on Friday as well. But until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening. And I'm ready for the draft. It's like, let's go. It's Thursday.
Ready for it too, man. I'm ready for draft eve to get here so I can watch draft days.
Yep. So there we go. The tradition. Yep. Guys, thanks so much. I'm Kevin Knight of Falcoholic Kevin. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Check out the Patreon if you want to support the show. Check out the channel memberships as well. And we'll be back soon with more Falcons draft talk heading into draft week. Just a couple days away now. So until then, guys, have a great night. Thanks for joining.